T-I-M-S-W-E-A-T, Fire Chief and EMS Director for Clayton County Fire and Emergency Services. On the morning of July 29th at approximately 10:42 a.m., our mobile integrated healthcare team responded to 3406 Rex Road, the location of Now Faith Apostolic Church, following up on a 911 call where a young female was injured during an altercation. Upon arrival of our mobile integrated healthcare team, consisting of a paramedic lieutenant and a nurse practitioner, they observed evidence suggesting that individuals, including youth, were indeed living in the space. Upon confirmation that the facility was possibly operating as a board and care home, Assistant Fire Marshal Captain Spencer Way self-dispatched to the scene around 1:00 p.m. the same afternoon. He made contact with Ms. Trayon Watley, who identified herself as the Director of National Youth Placement. Ms. Watley granted entry to the lower level of the church, where Captain Way observed the following, which was documented via a video recording: multiple rooms and youth actively living in the space. After confirming these findings, Captain Way reported his findings to the County Fire Marshal, Chris Cameron, who then responded to the scene. Upon the arrival of Fire Marshal Cameron, he contacted Dr. Carol Brady, who identified himself as the owner of National Youth Placement. Dr. Brady explained, his business formerly operated at 125 Highway 138, however, had to vacate due to flooding issues. Dr. Brady stated that the State Fire Marshal granted permission for their relocation to the church facility. This statement by Dr. Brady was consistent with a previous statement made by the facility director, Trayon Watley, during a recorded interview with Captain Spencer Way. Fire Marshal Cameron clarified that while the State Fire Marshal has jurisdiction over certain church properties, this particular location does not fall under the jurisdiction of the State Fire Marshal. In addition, the occupancy classification for the church is assembly and not that of a board and care. Additionally, he informed Dr. Brady that the location had numerous fire code violations. Dr. Brady disagreed with that assessment, insisting he had prior approval. At this point, Fire Marshal Cameron chose to leave the scene and report back to fire headquarters. Around 4:00 p.m. on July 29th, I myself met with Fire Marshal Chris Cameron, where he provided a detailed briefing on the situation at 3406 Rex Road, including the presence of multiple fire code violations and the occupancy concerns. I immediately directed Chief Cameron to contact the State Fire Marshal, Craig Ladnolt, to determine whether the state had authorized the relocation of the youth to the church facility. Chief Cameron spoke directly with Chief Ladnolt, State Fire Marshal, via phone call at 7:59 p.m. on the evening of July 29th, where Chief Ladnolt made the following very clear. The state had not authorized the relocation. If anyone within the State Fire Marshal's office had suggested otherwise, he was overruling it. State Fire Marshal Ladnolt emphasized that he does not have jurisdiction over this particular church property. He affirmed that jurisdiction lies solely with the local fire authority, in this case, Clayton County Fire and Emergency Services. In addition, Chief Ladnolt provided an email statement on August 7th stating the following. Point your attention to the screen. Email from State Fire Marshal Craig Ladnolt to County Fire Marshal Chris Cameron, dated August 7, 2025 at 9:41 a.m. regarding request for statement regarding jurisdiction and use of 3406 Rex Road as a board and care facility. Good morning, Chief Cameron. This office has no knowledge of this facility and more specifically any knowledge of persons being approved to reside there. The person making claims to the contrary should produce documentation to support that position, as this office would certainly have provided written documentation of such approval. Kindest regards, Craig Ladnolt, State Fire Marshal, Office of Commissioner John F. King. Once we had confirmation that the state did not authorize the relocation, we began developing a safety plan to remove the children from the church in a calm and secure manner. At approximately 9:13 p.m. on July 29th, I arrived on scene at 3406 Rex Road now Faith Apostolic Church, alongside Fire Marshal Cameron and Assistant Fire Marshal Captain Spencer Wade. We were met by Ms. Trayon Watley, who had previously identified herself as the Director of National Youth Placement. We informed her that due to fire code violations and occupancy issues, the children simply could not remain at this location. We asked her whether National Youth Placement had the means to relocate the youth. Ms. Watley advised that they did not have the resources or a secondary location. The church was serving as their emergency backup, and they had nowhere else to move the children. Given the urgency and lack of an alternative location, we informed Ms. Watley that we would contact the Georgia Department of Family and Children's Services for assistance. This action was taken to ensure, 1, the immediate safety and well-being of the children, 2, to ensure that proper housing and support services could be arranged by the appropriate state agencies. Once contact was made with Georgia DFACS, efforts were coordinated to safely relocate all minors from the church facility. Because the children were under the jurisdiction of multiple DFACS offices, the relocation process extended into the early morning hours. The final child was safely relocated at approximately 5:30 a.m. on July 30th, 2025. Throughout the night, Clayton County Fire and Emergency Services personnel remained on site alongside local law enforcement to ensure the safety and well-being of every child and adult involved, in addition to provide stability and oversight during the transition. Recently, questions have arisen as to who authorized the fire chief to remove these children. Title 25 of the state of Georgia gives me that authority. Specifically, Section 25-2-12, State Fire Safety Standards, Enforcement, Investigation, and Variances. Number 1, the county governing authority in any county having a population of 100,000 or more, and the municipal government authority in any municipality having a population of 45,000 or more, each as determined by the most recent decennial census published by the United States Bureau of the Census, and those municipalities pursuant to subsection B of this code section shall adopt the state minimum fire safety standards adopted in the rules and regulations promulgated pursuant to this chapter, including all subsequent revisions thereof. Number 2, with respect to those buildings and structures listed in code section 25-2-13, except for hospitals, nursing homes, jails, ambulatory health care centers, and penal institutions, and except for buildings and structures which are owned and operated or occupied by the state, every such local governing authority shall be responsible for enforcing such fire safety standards within its jurisdiction. Number 2, Clayton County Code of Ordinance, Chapter 42, Article 1, Section 42-3, Establishment and Duties of the Bureau of Fire Prevention. The state minimum fire safety standards adopted in this article shall be enforced by the Bureau of Fire Prevention of the Fire Department or the county, which is hereby established and which shall be operated under the supervision of the chief of that county Fire and Emergency Services Department. Number 3, International Fire Code 2018 with Georgia amendments adopted by Clayton County in accordance with Clayton County Code of Ordinance, Chapter 42, Article 2, Fire Prevention Code, Section 42.31.1, Subsection A. IFC, International Fire Code 2018, Section 111.2, entitled Evacuation. The fire code official of the fire department, official in charge of an incident, shall be authorized to order the immediate evacuation of any occupied structure deemed unsafe where such structure has hazardous conditions that pose an immediate danger to structure occupants. Persons so notified shall immediately leave the structure or premises and shall not enter or re-enter until authorized to do so by the fire code official or the fire department official in charge of that incident. Once the kids were in the process of being safely located, the fire marshal's office issued the following citations. Citation number 11-587, absence of an automatic sprinkler system, which is a requirement. Citation number 11-588, fire alarm system as required. Citation number 11-589, fire extinguishers as required. Citation number 11-951, general requirements for a board and care occupancy. And citation number 11-952, required means of egress. These citations are scheduled for review before the Clayton County Code Enforcement Board on September 9, 2025. Next, I want to speak to some false statements that have been painted. So National Youth Placement has publicly claimed that on the evening of the 29th, upon our arrival at 12:30 a.m., youth were abruptly awakened by police and fire code officials using flashlights and were told they had to leave immediately. Let me be clear. This statement is simply false. CCPD event report shows CCPD arrived on a trouble unknown call at that same location at 8:58 p.m. with a request to hold all traffic on their radio channels. Before my arrival at 9:13 p.m., I was advised to stage due to an active incident currently being worked by the Clayton County Police Department, once again at the same location. On my arrival at 9:13 p.m., I observed the facility fully lit and youth actively moving in and about the facility. Point your attention to the document on the screen behind me. This is a CAD report of the incident where Clayton County Police Department, was dispatched to a totally unrelated incident at the same location at 8:44 in the evening. Center of the document shows radio traffic during their incident. The highlighted portion, which is at the bottom of the screen, reads as follows. Per FS, FS stands for Fireside. Per Fireside Car 1 is myself, that is my radio number. Have PD 59, which is meet with me, 59 with him at the back of the building. That is timestamp July 29, 2025, 21:13 or 9:13 p.m., clearly denoting the time in which myself, Fire Marshal Chris Cameron, and Assistant Fire Marshal Spencer Way arrived on that scene, not 12:30 a.m. While Clayton County Police Department personnel did accompany us to the scene, they were there strictly to maintain a safe and peaceful environment and assist in ensuring the safety of all involved. In reality, Ms. Watley and members of her staff were the ones who informed the children of the situation. Other National Youth Placement employees began assisting the youth with packing their belongings. Several youths were already awake, actively entering and exiting the building and moving about inside the church when we arrived. Next, National Youth Placement has claimed that Clayton County Fire and Emergency Services reported that the youth were living in deplorable conditions. Once again, this is simply not true as well. In fact, we have stated that the youth were not living in deplorable conditions. In fact, we have repeatedly stated, including in multiple interviews with the news media, that one, the primary concern was not the living conditions themselves, but the unauthorized and unsafe use of a building not designed or approved for a board and care facility. The change in occupancy classification due to the space being used as a board and care facility was the root cause of the observed fire code violations. According to NFPA, National Fire Protection Association 101-2018 edition, section 18.1.1.4, any changes in use or occupancy that introduces a new occupancy group or increases the hazard to the life safety classifies the area as a new occupancy, and thus all requirements for new occupancies shall apply. Once again, the lack of a sprinkler system, active fire extinguishers, and the like. Our actions were grounded in life safety, fire code compliance, and legal authority, not in judgment of the facility's cleanliness or basic provisions. However, what you will see in the next slides is substantial work to improve the conditions post our inspection and prior to the facility's news conference. Lastly, National Youth Placement has stated that I myself was aware that this was their second time utilizing the church as an alternate location to house youth. Simply not true again. At no point was I, nor Clayton County Fire and Emergency Services, made aware that the church was ever previously used for this purpose. Had we been notified, we would have taken the same steps to ensure applicable fire codes and ensure the safety of all occupants at that time. This time I'm going to bring to the podium Fire Marshal Chris Cameron, who will provide you with some documented photos taken on the evening of July 29, 2025 in relation to the fire code violations.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Cameron, Fire Marshal for Clayton County Fire and Emergency Services. I want to take a moment to provide clear understanding of fire code noncompliance at the National Youth Placement Facility. The Fire Marshal's Office has this structure and use classified in accordance with NFPA 101 as an assembly occupancy. The NFPA classification is important because each occupancy classification holds specific fire protection requirements. As reported, the basement level of this facility was being used as a boarding care occupancy as defined by NFPA 101. For clarity, when I refer to the basement level of the structure, I am not describing the living conditions of the occupants, but rather using the terms as defined by NFPA 101. The Fire Marshal's Office uses code-specific language during all reviews, inspections, and investigations. To provide a simplistic overview of the fire code violations, I have provided several photos which will be posted on the screen of the facility, all dated and time-stamped from the evening of July 29th. So if I can draw your attention to the first photo. This first photo captured on July 29th is of the main corridor leading into the basement level. As shown, this area presented with no fire alarm devices on the walls or devices such as strobe lights, pull stations, or audible horns. Additionally, the ceiling is not outfitted with a sprinkler system or proper coverage of a suppression system. All fire code requirements are essential, but notification, suppression, and egress are fundamental to the occupant's fire protection. Photo 2. This photo was taken on July 29th, references the bedroom's secondary means of escape, a window, if you can see it kind of toward the back, which was boarded over and secured with screws, permanently removing it as an egress or a rescue opening. NFPA 101 permits a window as a secondary means of escape only if it meets certain criteria, all of which were negated here by the obstruction of the board. The photo on the right was taken by the media and broadcasted on August 1st. This shows the same room with the board removed, replaced with a window covering, and other cosmetic changes. The only item that remains unchanged between our photo on the left and the media broadcast photo on the right is the TV wall mount bracket. Next photo. This photo was captured again on July 29th, references the corridor or hallway obstructions. NFPA 101 requires that means of egress remain reliable and unobstructed in any manner. In this photo, you can see couches line the corridor or hallway, hindering both evacuation and firefighter access under emergency conditions. This photo captured on July 29th, NFPA 101 prohibits locking of any doors in a means of escape while a building is being occupied. On July 29th, the basement exit doors were locked and controlled by the staff to egress the facility, per fire code. If any amount of specialized security measures are in place, and auto-locking mechanisms and release mechanisms are required. The next photo. This photo was captured on July 29th in accordance with the International Fire Code and NFPA 10. No fire extinguishers were found within the required 75 feet of travel distance on the basement level. This was for all corridors. Based on the travel distance, each corridor would require at least one extinguisher, maybe more depending on the distance. The absence of fire extinguishers left the facility without even the most basic aspects of fire protection. Next photo. This photo captured on July 29th references the violation of a minimum of 3-foot clearance per International Fire Code to the electrical panel. This panel was surrounded by shelving and combustible materials, presenting both code violation and a major hazard. Next photo. This photo was taken July 29th as well. The International Fire Code restricts the storage of fuel-powered equipment unless proper fire rating protection or a sprinkler system is provided. Please note the generator that was stored inside without said protections. The next photo, again, captured on July 29th. Excuse me, let me go back one. July 29th, the facility director stated to me personally that all meals were cooked on site daily. In accordance with NFPA 96 and the International Fire Code, a Type 1 hood system and automatic fire suppression system per NFPA 17 is required, along with a K-class extinguisher within 30 foot of the cooking appliance, as required by NFPA 10. None of these were present. The hood provided, as you can see in the photo, is a standard household vent system without suppression system. Next photo, captured on July 29th, shows a large fire load of combustible material near the kitchen. Per NFPA and International Fire Code, such storage requires a fire-rated area or protection by a sprinkler system. A fire load of this size, which you can see in the picture, can increase heat release rates, accelerate flame spread, produce more smoke and toxic gases, and even overwhelm a fire protection system if one had been in place due to the amount of combustible material that was being stored in this room. Next photo. This photo, again captured on July 29th, shows the bathroom window boarded over in the same manner as the first photo that I showed you that was boarded in the bedroom, blocking both egress and rescue capability. Windows coverings for privacy is much different than a boarded window that can help you escape. Next photo, the left and middle photos were captured on July 29th during our findings, and the right photo was taken from the media broadcast on August 1st. These photos reference the room's lack of sprinkler system, fire alarm devices, smoke detection, and emergency lighting. The media photo on the right shows additional combustible furnishings such as a couch, wall tables that were not present during our findings on July 29th. Thus, further increases the fire load without ever addressing the lack of any fire protection. Next photo. The photo on the left, the photo on the left captured July 29th. The photo on the right is from the media broadcast on August 1st. As a prior photo, the room contained no fire protection. By August 1st, as you can see, more combustible furnishings were added, again without any protective system. The blue load-bearing pole is our identifying mark that this, in fact, is the same room that has been modified with additional combustible materials such as bedding. Next photo. The left photo captured on July 29th. Middle and right photos are from August 11th media coverage. To cross-reference the photos, please take note of the rear door, which it has two locking devices and a door located directly to the right. Media photo shows additional wall covering, such as photos, paintings, and combustible bedroom furniture added after our inspection, without any of the additional required fire protection. As Chief Sweat has stated, legal citations were issued on the evening of July 29th. However, our inspection revealed numerous additional violations beyond those initial citations. Not one single required fire code provision for a board and care home facility was met. The facility had no working fire alarm, no sprinkler system, no smoke detection devices, no emergency lighting, locked and obstructed exits, blocked rescue windows, no fire extinguishers, and a significant amount of stored combustible material. Every safeguard that protects life in a fire, detection, notification, suppression, and safe egress was absent. Faced with the facility housing minors under these conditions, survival in a fire would have been unlikely. As the Fire Marshal's Office, our duty is to act before lives are lost, not after. That's why on July 29th, we made the responsible decision to remove these children from immediate danger. I will now turn the podium over to Clayton County Police Chief Kevin Roberts.
Good morning. I'd like to take a moment to speak to the police response on July 29th. On July 29th, as previously stated, officers responded to a trouble unknown call at the location at 8:44 p.m. While the officers were investigating the call, they learned that it was in reference to juveniles possibly leaving the facility. During their investigation, they were able to locate those juveniles on scene, and as they were conducting their investigation, Clayton County Fire and EMS personnel arrived on scene, as previously stated, and alerted the officers that the juveniles on scene would need to be transitioned to state DFACS facilities elsewhere due to the violations that were just rendered here. Officers remained on scene until the last child was transferred at 5:30 a.m. on July 30th. And our department is very familiar with this location, as we responded to this location 202 calls since October of 2024. The officers on scene were conducting an investigation. They did so, and we supported our public safety partners with safely transitioning these children to the appropriate facility. Next, you will hear from the Director of Community Development, Director Patrick Ajike.
Good morning. The property in question does not have a business license and does not have the zoning requirements to have conducted such board and care facility. My name is Patrick Ejike, first name Patrick, Patrick, last name Ejike. I'm the Director for Community Development Department. We are responsible for business license and building permitting.
At this time, that concludes the updated information that we have to share. We'll take a few moments and answer a few questions. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Just the alphabet. Ma'am.
I wanted to clarify, I sent an email said August 7th, where you said that you found out about the state marshal on the day of. So I wanted to clarify if you knew you had authority over that facility on the day of or on August 7th.
If I think I understand your question correctly, you're asking me if I knew or the fire department knew that we had authority over that facility prior to confirming that through the state fire marshal? If that's the question, then the answer is yes. However, given that the facility owner and director confirmed on 2 different occasions through video recordings that they were given permission by the state fire marshal, I chose to reach out to him or direct Chief Cameron to reach out to him to confirm that. That was confirmed via phone call on the same day. In addition, Chief Landolt provided his response via an email, which was received yesterday morning.
Chief, this
Tom?
started out as a police call. Why did fire get involved?
So we were already involved due to, once again, a 911 call where we responded to that location on an altercation between 2 female occupants, where one of the female occupants were injured, and we subsequently transported her to the hospital. Our crews at that time, looking at the setting, if you will, kind of reached out through an internal system that we have, notified our mobile integrated healthcare team, say, hey, you may be able to go look at this facility. We're not really sure exactly what they're doing. So that process started immediately.
So there were 2 separate calls.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Let me reiterate. We were already actively working once State Fire Marshal confirmation was confirmed at, I believe, 7:59 p.m. that evening. Myself, Fire Marshal Cameron, immediately began to put our plans together and responded to the church. We would have arrived prior to 9:13. However, once again, there was a separate incident that Chief Roberts has confirmed where his department was summoned to the scene by the individuals of the facility on a separate, unrelated matter. Upon our arrival, we were once again told to stage until PD could ensure that that space was safe for us to enter.
So these are 2 kids fighting, did you say that? I'm sorry.
Yes.
You're involved with that.
Yes.
Now, what I'm trying to understand, Chief, is there were 204 calls to this facility.
Now, those 202 calls that were captured by dispatch were primarily police calls. The calls ranged from missing children to runaways to disturbances at the facility. So it's not necessarily EMS involved. We come out all the time to situations where there are disturbances. We take reports, we settle disputes, and we leave. So we can't speak to the need for fire and EMS, but the majority of these calls are police-related response calls.
If the head or director of this facility has had over 200 calls to this facility and they're allegedly breaking so many code violations, are there any penalties involved? And have they had any run-ins with either law enforcement or fire and EMS in the past?
Once again, I think I understood. So from fire's perspective in regards to enforcing fire codes, that's more of an administrative process, not really a criminal, if you will. So criminally speaking, we enforce fire codes through our authority, through the state and the national level, and once again adopted by county code and ordinances where we cite businesses, occupants. They then go before the code enforcement board, where that board will rule in favor of us and or the occupant, and in favor of us, they're enforced fines. Our codes strictly say that's $1,000 per citation. So once this is heard at the code enforcement board on September 9th, if ruled in our favor, then the occupant will be charged a $1,000 fine per the 5 citations for a $5,000 fine.
Chief, can you clear this up? The pastor says that he was told, maybe the fire marshal can, that he was told that he'd be given an opportunity to correct what you guys cited him for, and then the next thing he says he knows is you guys come in and start removing kids. Is that accurate, or is there something that we can clear up here?
Sure, he has every right if he wants to go and try and correct the violations, but the fact still remains on the evening of July 29th at 9:13 p.m. when we arrived, you were operating a boarding care home and those violations were in place. It doesn't negate the fact that those violations simply go away. So those violations will be heard via the Code Enforcement Board, where a ruling will be made. But through all means, if you know Dr. Brady or the business itself chooses to move forward with getting the proper fire protection systems in place.
Maybe I didn't phrase that right. He meant that he would be allowed to keep the kids there.
Sure.
While the Mayfield, that was never an option.
No, sir. No, sir.
Chief, obviously with housing kids there for however long it was, I mean, something bad could have happened previously. Are you thankful that something like that happened before you guys noticed that? I mean, it could be a completely different call. You guys could have got a fire and you could have been killed. I mean, do you think?
Thank you for asking that question. So, as Chief Cameron kind of stated in his comments, when this was brought to his attention as the county fire marshal, and then brought to my attention as the county appointed fire chief, per the laws, which I went through earlier in my presentation, we have a duty to act. If I simply would have turned my head and not acted, and heaven forbid something happened, this conversation will be totally different. So once again, we acted strictly on the presence of fire code, in which we are authorized and from a legal standpoint expected to do to ensure the safety of these 12 young men and women.
Chief, have you gotten any information that defects was aware that these kids were there? The pastor makes that claim.
As of now, I have not. I will state that when we began the process of making contacts with state defects, I was calling some numbers. Chief Cameron was calling numbers. An officer on the scene from Clayton County PD were calling their numbers. I did have a conversation with an individual. I cannot recall her name. But one thing I was trying to do was determine the 12 youth that were in front of us. Is this all of them? When I made a contact with a young lady through Georgia DFACS, once again, I can't recall the name or her name, I gave her the facility location of 125 Highway 138, because once again, that is where this occupancy was originally functioning out of. She pulled up that address. She says, I show 15 kids listed at that facility. I said, okay, I'm in the presence of 12, however, we're at a different location. That phone call, that individual confirmed that she showed those kids, the 15, at a location on Highway 125, Highway 138 in Riverton. I've tried numerous times since the evening of the 29th to try to confirm through state and or local DFACs, and I've yet to be given a direct answer or response.
So what question?
To whether or not the state DFACs and or any local DFACs knew that those children were currently being housed at the 3406 restaurant.
Are you all aware of the status of the 12 youth now? Where they are, what their condition is?
Unfortunately not. Once again, our process was to relocate those individuals at the direction and the guidance of state and local DFACs offices. Once again, we stayed there throughout the night. The last youth was placed the next morning at 5:30. As far as where they are today, I have no idea.
What about the other three?
Still, well, let me go back. So once again, after the 15, the 12, we did verify, our National Youth Placement verified that 3 of the 15 had aged out of the program. So, but we did confirm the remaining 12. That was on the state DFAC side, showing as placed were the 12 youths that we were interacting with and subsequently relocated to a safer facility with the assistance of state DFACs.
What's your message to organizations or people who do want to be that support for people with no option, kids with no option?
Sure.
And unfortunately run into scenarios like this?
Clayton County, we have probably over 100 group and care homes in our community that we as a fire department and Chief Cameron as a fire marshal interact with and partner with them, and they have the appropriate things in place to run their facility. My ask is simply, if you're coming to Clayton to start such a business, that just follow the code, follow the process, and that process will include interaction with our organization from a fire code perspective.
Chief, just to be clear, this has nothing to do with policy.
No, sir. I will reiterate that, and with that would be the last question. I acted simply on my authority as the fire chief of this county. You saw the codes. I've cited those, and once again, I have a duty to act. This was brought to my attention on the afternoon of July 29th. We developed a plan, and we relocated those youths that evening. So thank everybody. I appreciate your time. Be safe and enjoy your weekend. Thank you.
Thank you for watching ANF Plus. For more breaking news, live coverage, and your community stories, download the Atlanta News First app. You can also watch us on YouTube, Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. To join the conversation on YouTube Live, visit our channel and hit subscribe. You can also listen to the Atlanta News First podcast by searching Atlanta News First on your preferred listening platform.